Hi everybody, it's Emily from Life Sew Savory, and today we're going to talk about making a t-shirt quilt, and I'm going to show you what I've been working on. This will be a probably pretty quick, shorter show today, but I'm excited about a couple things and I wanted to show you what I've been doing. So just hang tight for a minute. I'm going to my computer and Facebook. Things have been really weird today, so we'll see how this works. But anyway, so I'm hoping I can create this without it being, and do this without it being a big mess. So we will see. So about 10 years ago, I sewed a t-shirt quilt for my husband. And I know it was that long ago because when I look at the original pictures, my oldest is a tiny toddler in it, which is just crazy. So anyway, let's see, that's not what I want to do. You know I can't type and talk. So I made this t-shirt quilt, and oh, it's being super weird again, where it's not letting me share. It did this last week. There's no place to hit the share. It's so weird. Anyway, I can share it to my group. We'll do that. So we had this t-shirt quilt, and it was great, and it was lap size, and we have used it lots and lots for different things. And I don't know, I can't share this video. So I don't know, if you want to share this video, go ahead and do that. I don't know why I can't share it. This happened to me last week, and I forgot to go and check out why this was happening. I don't know. Things are weird. Well, sure, I can share it to some groups. I don't know. Anyway, so we made this t-shirt quilt. It was a lap size. It was great. We've had it, like I said, for 10 years, and I learned a lot of things in making the first quilt because I was not strategic. So we were home. Remember, we lived in Hong Kong for many years. So we were home one summer, and my husband's parents wanted to clean out their garage. And so they had this box of t-shirts, and my husband said, "Would you make a t-shirt quilt?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, that sounds like a good project." So I just took all of these, yes, Tina, which is awesome. I know a lot of you guys show up because you see an alert that I'm going live. So I just took all these shirts, and I just sort of cut around the graphic. If the graphic was this size, I cut it this size. If the graphic was this size, I cut it this size. If it was big, I cut it this size. And I took that pile of cut up graphics back to Hong Kong with me, and then I sat on it for a while. I don't know how long it took me to actually sew them. So then when I got out to do the project, I realized, oh my goodness, I have all these different size pieces that I'm trying to put together in a quilt. So it took me a long time just to piece the original quilt together, and I ended up using bits of the backing to fill in some of the gaps because I had weird pieces, okay? But I got it done. It looked great. It worked great. We had a good time with it, and we've used it as a lap quilt / extra someone's cold blanket for many, many years. Then this spring, my husband's cleaning out his drawers again, and shirts that he moved 4 years ago and hasn't worn once, or shirts that don't really fit or are worn out, he said, "Would you make these into a quilt?" And I'm thinking, sure, we'll make a second t-shirt quilt. And actually he said, "No, I want you to add it to the first one." So I had to wrap my head around that, and I actually just kept the big stack of shirts. I didn't cut them up because I had learned from my mistake last time. And so I had these shirts, and so now last week I'm thinking, okay, this is a good time. I have time. Let's work on this project. So what I did was I looked at the graphics, and the first thing I did was create sort of a standard size. And when I looked at all the shirts I had, I realized that if I cut 14 by 14 squares, that would give me even chunks of most of the shirts. And I had a few variances, and if you take a look at the post that I've linked in the description of this video, you can see how I showed how to piece, like if you have several small little pieces, like sometimes you have sleeve designs or pocket designs and you want to save those graphics. So I pieced all of those into one 14 by 14 square so that I'm still working with standard sizes. And wow, so much easier, okay? So my first tip is definitely create a standard size, or at least a couple standard sizes. Maybe you have 10 by 10 squares and 14 by 14 squares or things like that, and you can create, you know, big row, big row, smaller row, whatever it is. If you have sort of a one or two standard sizes, it will just save you so much time in the piecing together. So I did that with this new group, and I wrote all about getting those ready for the quilt in a post yesterday, and that's what I've linked here. And I'm about to show you, because I've gone even farther with the project this week, and now I'm putting it all together. And today we're going to talk about putting the backing on and putting it all together. So I had the extra pieces, and what I ended up doing is taking the original quilt, taking off the binding, picking off the backing, and then being left with a center. And so my new shirts, what I ended up doing is putting a border of these 14 by 14s around the original. So this is actually now huge. And my husband is excited because he thinks it's big enough to go on our bed, but that is not gonna happen. We are not gonna have this t-shirt quilt as our main bedding, sorry, not gonna happen. But it's definitely a bed size more than a lap size quilt now. And so let's talk about backings, and then I'll kind of show you what I've got going. All right, so for a backing for a lap size quilt, you can use a lot of different fabrics, because a lot of cozy flannel, not flannels, but like fleece, are 60 wide. And so you can just use one of those as your backing. So I had originally bought this pretty blue fleece to be the backing. And then I realized this has gotten out of control and the thing is ginormous. And I'd have to piece two strips together because it's wider than it originally was. And two, it's gonna be really heavy because it's already really heavy with the shirts. And then on the back of each shirt, you need to put some stabilizer to make sure that your t-shirt fabric is stretchy and you don't want your quilt to stretch. So I like to use iron-on fleece because then you have like your batting and your stabilizer all in one. So I'll show you when we get to the quilt part. It's on the floor back here because it's so huge. So I abandoned this fun fleece, and I'll have to use it for another project. And I actually ran to Walmart this morning and I bought myself a king flat sheet, which is one of the things that I like to do to back quilts because it's a solid piece of fabric, and you don't have to piece, and it gives you lots of fabric to work with. So this is probably cheaper than my fleece would be anyway, because I think this king was $19 and it's just the flat sheet. And you could probably order cheaper off Amazon, but I didn't have time because I was trying to do this morning. And I think, this is fancy fleece. It's not like normal fleece. So it might've been like $10 a yard. You can buy your normal fleece for $4 or $5 a yard, and you can get it even cheaper on sale. So depending on what you're using, this thing is gotten monstrous and it would be too heavy to use this kind of fabric. So we're using a light flat sheet as the backing. And now it's time to take a look at what we've got going. And then I've got a few things I want to show you as we're doing this. So let me see if I can put this down and show you this on the floor. Okay, so, all right. So here you can see it's huge. It's like totally bed size, and I'm in the middle of working on it. So this center here, so one block in on all sides is my new squares. And if you notice, they're actually a lot newer. You can tell these have been like worn and used for 10 years. Some of them almost feel like they're starting to fall apart, but we'll just keep it going as long as we can. But you can see here how I had cut this graphic out, and then I had to piece the sides because it was small. So all of these are totally different sizes, and I had just gone ahead and like chopped it up and not even thought about the size. So I had to add a lot of this blue, these strips here, when I was sewing the original one, and I wanted to try and avoid that on the next section. What I did end up doing is, can you see up there that blue square in the corner is actually the fleece I showed you, because I was a couple shirts short to make a full border. Okay, so I ended up adding 2 blue squares up on the top, and on this side, or that's the bottom actually, on this side I have 2 little sections of blue. Okay, so today I laid down my sheet, and I just put this on top, and then I stretched everything out to make sure that it is laying as flat as possible. And then here, take a look at the back, and you can see what I did. So this is the iron-on fleece that I put on the back of my pieces, and I did it before I sewed them together so that it's fused and it's caught in the seams. Okay, so that's why I'm just thinking the fleece is really too heavy, because I already have this iron-on fleece, and is it called iron-on fleece? I think so. Iron-on fleece, and then I don't want another layer. So that's why we're gonna go with the sheet. And then the other thing is the original lap size one, I did not tie it in the center because it wasn't that big, but because this one is huge, I am adding some little ties to sort of attach it in several places. So after I had this laid out, what I did was I rolled it up carefully, and then when I got up there along the top, I was able to put one hand under and then make sure I got through both the t-shirt and the sheet on the bottom, and then to add some ties. Okay, so I've sort of been crawling around on the floor this morning doing that, but what I thought I would do is I have the last row of ties still to do, so I thought I would do that today. And then also, let's see if you can, so I'm going to add the last row of ties, and then I'm also going to show you how I bind the edge. Okay, so probably back this up a little bit. But, okay, so I want to make sure I've got it all pulled out again so that when we tie it together, it is going the right way. Whoops, I just caught it on my slipper. Okay, there was a question, and of course now I'm far away. Adhesive spray, yes. So I have used an adhesive spray, but I actually have never put a quilt together this big. The largest I've ever made is a twin. This is definitely bigger than a twin. So I'm a little bit learning as I go. But I'll show you when I do the edging that I'm actually just going to use the same method that I did on the Sherpa and flannel quilt that I did. So it's a super easy binding method, and I'm going to show you how we do it. So you can see this is the new shirts along the top here, and then these are the old ones. And if I hadn't been doing my nice squares, I totally would just cut this. And I could have, if I needed to, like piece these two, could have been put together to make one 14-inch square. This is my pieced one right here. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 small little graphics all in one. And then I did in the corner, put a tiny bit of the blue fleece again because I needed to fill out that corner. Okay, so roll it if you have too much fabric, but I need to be able to put my hand under and then through, and I have this really sharp fat needle here, and then I'm tying a square knot with embroidery floss to sort of pseudo quilt these pieces together. And this is just going to help hold my backing in a few places so that because of the size, I just felt like it was too big just to leave the back floating in the middle. For a lap size, we have not had any problems with this quilt over the years with the backing shifting around. But the other tip is you can see how I had a long piece of embroidery floss and then I'm just continuing to use the same piece and then cutting off the end. Okay, and eventually you do get where you need to use up the last of it. Maybe I can get one more out of this. Okay, so we're not going to go all the way to the edge, but we need to go back here and put one more over here. So I've just, you know, in the middle it was a little bit harder because I didn't have sort of standard rows, but on this outside where I have rows, I'm just trying to be strategic in, you know, putting 3 or 4 across each row as we go, okay? So that is how I'm tying down the quilt to make sure that it doesn't slip and slide. The fleece backing makes it so it's not slippery, but again, also provides that little bit of extra thickness like a quilt batting, but we didn't have to add it because I ironed it on the back of each piece. So if you want to add another batting or you're going to add a fleece fluffy backing, then you could just use regular stabilizer on the back of each of your pieces of t-shirt and not use the fleece. But I think the fleece is kind of like an all-in-one thing. So I need put down this needle, and then let's pivot over to this side of the quilt so I can show you my method for binding it, okay? So we're gonna do sort of an all-in-one binding method using the extra backing. And like I said, I bought a king-size quilt. One, because I was at Walmart and I had no idea how big the quilt actually was. And I thought, oh, I just don't know if a queen is big enough. So I went ahead and I bought the king size, and I'm glad I did because you can see how there's not a ton of extra around it. So depending on how much extra you have around, you do need to trim off some of that down to where you have like 2 or 3 inches around on all sides. So the first thing to do to create the binding is go around and sort of cut down the extra fabric. And I'll just show you this on one side and then I'll have to keep going on the other. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact because you're gonna fold it, okay? So once you have just a couple of inches, and you can decide how fat you want it based on how wide you want your binding to be. The fatter you leave it, the wider you leave it, then the wider your binding will be. So I'm going to fold the raw edge over so it meets the edge of my quilt, and then I'm going to fold it over one more time and put a pin in it. And that creates a nice, wide, fun binding here with the backing all in one step. So those of you who are professional quilters, no judgment. This is not a professional quilt backing. I know that. It's totally a cheater method. but it's also the way that I finished my flannel and Sherpa quilt and lap quilt, and it just turned out so fabulous. And then all you have to do is stitch here on the fold side closest to your fabric, and voila, you have a binding. So I will be going around this afternoon and doing this sort of binding all the way around the quilt, and then I'm going to stitch it with dark blue thread. So let's just fold this back, and you can see how this is the backing of the quilt, and we have some ties. Let me see, so this little green thing right here you can see is a tie. There's a tie here. Okay, so it is tied in a few spots, and then those are some ties. And you can always go back and add more ties later if you want to. But that is how I add the binding. And again, if you are looking for more tips about t-shirt quilt making, oh goodness, you can go ahead and check out yesterday's post where I wrote all about it. And then, not tomorrow, Friday, I'm going to be posting how to fold over that extra edge, the tying off, and the sewing around part of the tutorial. But if you've had t-shirts laying around, or if you're like me and you want your husband to clean out his drawer, but he won't throw them away, but he will agree to get rid of them if you make it into a quilt, then this is something you need to check out. Okay, so is that Bunky? Who said that? Is having trouble with the corners. So, okay, so we totally do cheater corners. We're not doing miter corners. Let me show you a corner here on the video, and then this will all be again in the post, but I can show you a corner, okay? It's not as hard as you think it should be because we're not doing real quilting here, okay? We are doing fake quilting that looks awesome. This is what I tell myself, okay? So this is not your grandma's heirloom quilt. This is a t-shirt quilt. And you can see how I'm keeping it straight here as I go. And I had cut that side, and now I gotta cut the other side to match. Okay? So you get to the corner like this, and you've got your quilt ready to go, and you have trimmed all the way around like I did. Okay, so I do the double fold all the way to one side of the corner, and then all I simply do, this looks like it's a little bit long here. I recently bought new scissors. Why did I wait so long? I don't know. I'm very happy with them. And we do the double fold again. We do the double fold again here. And then I'm going to take this out, put this in. Let me just do a couple here, and then I will show you what this looks like. It is so easy, and it looks so good. Okay, so here is our corner, and you can see it's not mitered corner. This is just a total straight fold, but it looks fine. So what I will do is when I'm sewing around, I will sew all the way to this edge, and then I'll start back at this corner and sew all the way along there so that the corner has square stitching all the way to edge on both sides. Okay, but it's going to be super easy. It looks great, especially if you use coordinating thread, and then it's a super easy one stitch around way to do the border. I have hand stitched borders on. In fact, this original t-shirt quilt had a more traditional quilt binding where I sewed it on one side and then I flipped it over and I hand stitched it whip stitch it to the back. But we're going simple today, and it's huge, so I don't want to be hand stitching it. But I'm so excited to show you the final product on Friday, and I'm actually trying to get it finished. We'll see if I can get it done this afternoon, because I'm hoping we can take some pictures outside while it's really nice with my husband this evening. He can hold it up. We'll take some pictures, and so I can post them for you on Friday. So that's what I've been working on. I hope it inspires you. If you've had t-shirts sitting around, or you have one, I know the t-shirt panels are kind of crazy we have here. My husband definitely has a lot of shirts, but just some things, like some inspiration is before we moved here, we had worked at my husband had worked at the same school for 18 years. And one of his coworkers saved, like, the fall festival. They had a fall festival t-shirt every year. She saved like 15 of them. And when she left that school, she created a t-shirt quilt just with all those shirts. So if you are at a business that has a shirt every year, or a school that has a shirt every year, those put together in like a collage make such a special quilt. This is total randomness here. We've got school, camp, shirts my husband's bought off the internet, like shirts he bought from Taco John's, all kinds of shirts here with no rhyme or reason or theme. But I've seen some amazing themed ones. So just a thought, like, save your kids, shirts from their 12 years of school, and then give them a t-shirt quilt when they graduate or something like that. So anyway, some ideas to think about and inspire you, and I'll be sharing this final product on Friday. So make sure you come back and check it out then, and I will see you guys again next week with more sewing and fabric fun. So hope you have a great rest of your week. I'll see you later. Bye.